I played with my brothers. And so I was used to even, compromising. I would be one out a whole lot of the times in terms of what we would play. Let's play with the dolls. Hell no. But, let's play with the trains. I could play with trains. I was born in Augsburg, Germany. My father was in the army. He was an officer. And we came in there by military transport, a ship. And so we came over the Atlantic. My mother was then bringing 5 out of her 9 children. It was certainly not a typical experience for a family. And I really don't have a visual memory of that time, having left there at the age of 4. We moved around a lot, and constantly for a family that was, as big as ours, we were always trying to find, houses and situations to accommodate. We would move into a very old house and a house that needed lots of work, that was even sometimes had been abandoned and left empty. And we would go in them and we would do the work to bring them up. The idea was that we would be able to offset the cost, especially the down payment. And we would talk about a house having good bones. And it would be trashed. It would be a house, no one would want to go in there and live. But we could go in there and see it in the way that we knew we could fix it up. And that's where I first learned how to use the hammer and the screwdriver, basic stuff. We didn't get anything fancy. Everything else was done by hand. So to me, that skill and that work ethic provided basically what I use as my basics in art today. The Nomad is a piece that has been with me for actually quite a long period of time. In my mid to late 20s, I helped build a small house. And it was made up out of all salvage materials. And the next project, because it was such a collaborative effort to build that small house, was going to be a house on wheels. The Nomad is a livable dwelling that is created in the form of a piece of art, assemblage art. It's not just going to be a place that shelters me, but it's actually going to be my art. You're at the Art Cloud Artist in Residency, and we're here on site as part of an open studio in connection to the Drum and Jazz Festival. That is an annual festival here at the Towers. And so I prepared the space for people to have a better idea about what the process is and where the Nomad is at this stage right now. This is my 44th address in my life. And some people have actually said and asked me, are you homeless? Because their only connection to moving about that much would be someone who is literally transient. It's very hard for some people to comprehend that you might choose to move about. But as a child, when we were moving about, people would ask, why do you move all the time? Other children? And we knew that it wasn't being seen as positive. We decided to say, we're nomads. And to me, the word entails kind of first people roots, about a way of being on and in the earth, but moving about and not having boundaries. For me, I want to be fluid. I don't want the experience of a move to have to break me. As women, we are in a position where we have to depend on a partner in order to be stable. My mom, you know, she became a single mother with quite a few children, and I certainly, that was a struggle, and I witnessed it. You know, that's interesting because doing the Nomad is what is creating my stability. Even though I've never driven, in my early drawings you could see the drawings of a small vintage pickup truck. And since I knew that my dwelling might be about 5,000 pounds, we knew then that the pickup size was perhaps too small for what we needed it to do. And therefore, we needed to look for a truck that was bigger than a pickup. We started negotiations with the owner. He was very nice, very accommodating. And then someone else bought the truck out from under us. The people who bought it, they were from the film industry. I then just had to wait and really be patient. Just as you let it go, I get an email from the original owner saying that the film company was complete with the truck and that they were ready to put it back out on the market, and if I was still interested, that I could be the first to get it and at the same price. It's the largest single object I've ever found. I did have a stumbling block of when I started to lose my eyesight. I was trying to figure out, well, if I cannot drive, how can I drive about in something mobile? It's often very hard for people to hear that I make a reference to being visually impaired or legally blind, and I'm a visual artist. So I've turned it around, and instead of it being an impediment to my art, my visual experience has actually enhanced my creativity tremendously. So we're going to see John, and everybody who goes to see John, who has ever been to that studio before or anticipates going to that studio, it's a world of wonder. John always has works in process, and they sometimes will be up on the wall, and sometimes you may not know whether it is work that is complete or not. Only the artist really, truly knows when a work is done. I think that's why so many artists do their work alone, in a studio, away, and where no one is to interrupt that process. Because for anyone outside, it's always, it looks done to me, right? Or, why don't you hurry up? That's the same place you were 2 weeks ago, and you're now still just looking at it. The looking is part of the process. The walking away from it is part of the process. The letting it sit for 2 years is part of the process. This has become a very public process, and so I have gotten the feedback more directly that, you know, why is it taking so long? So, human power.
Dominique was born in Germany, and she started from that point on picking up the pieces. And it says a lot, too, about the family and the pieces that were picked up and utilized and held on to. But not every member of the family held on to what Dominique held on to for so long. And so you see all of that through her work and in her work.
As artists, we share so much in terms of the exchange of a thought. Just sitting here in your studio and being able to be surrounded again by the vehicles of your life just remind me about how rich of a journey we've been on. I think of every artist tends to craft their environment. That integration that I talk about with the Nomad, of defining that art is not separate from my everyday life. Well, a live workspace, that's intrinsic in that, because you're living and working in the same environment. And oftentimes, historically, those weren't pre-made. So the artist had to find them, seek them, and as John said, discover them. So these are raw spaces, or they're old industrial spaces. It does not try to take away from its original character of what it was. It's industrial, and that there's beauty in that industry. I knew always I wanted to build it. I didn't want to buy it, I wanted to build it. And I wanted to build it in the ways that I build and create my artwork, and that takes time. I think people are all too often too much in a hurry. So I never thought of it as wasted time, you know, that it took too long. I think it's taken the right kind of time it needs. And I think it's much more powerful now than it would have been 5 years ago or 20 years ago. This is a whole life journey. And what I've done in the past 25 years is only adding to it. It is where it needs to be now.
First time I saw you, you were in your father's car, an innocent little star, surveying all the world that you would own. Next time I saw you,